My brother-in-law's dad told me this story. In his home country, back in the 70s, as he was walking on the streets, he was robbed, jumped, and left for dead. He didn't remember what happened once he hit the floor, but he remembers waking up in a random home, being held by an older man. The man helping him out identified himself as a pastor or priest of some church. Anyways, he was very weak, and he was told to stay inside the home. It was big enough for him to walk around, but they wanted him to stay inside the room so that he would get better. He would black out at times and fall asleep. The second day, he felt much better, so he wakes up and starts exploring the home. He couldn't find the man, so he randomly kept walking around. He found a hallway, and at the end of the hallway, there was a curtain placed on the wall, so it seemed as if it was a dead end or a window. He didn't see any natural light coming from the top edge or bottom edge as one would see curtains with windows have. So, he opens the curtains, and he told me he found a dead guy that had been sliced open up. His blood was everywhere, and he was tied from his wrist and legs, stomach facing upward. The room was full of satanic and devil symbols. As soon as he saw that, he found the door and left running out of that place. He recalls that when he was blacking out throughout the day, he could hear voices speaking in an unknown language, kind of like what cult members do when they're praying to the devil in movies. He could have been next to whatever satanic cult that was. Hi guys, super excited to have found a page to share some interesting experiences that I've had. The stories I will share will be ones I've experienced with others and can be confirmed by said individuals. First off, I feel as though I have to give you readers some background information about myself. I was raised by my mother, who is 50% Cherokee and 50% French. Us kids have never met our biological grandfather, and believes in paranormal things, but tries to pretend it isn't there. And by my father, who is Scottish English, German, and Jewish by blood. He, on the other hand, is 100% atheist and is rather skeptical about things he cannot explain. He endeavors to be a logical and scientific person in all things. Well, due to major differences in personalities, beliefs, and values, they divorced when I was 8. She soon married my stepfather, who is a devout Southern Baptist from Mississippi, and basically gave up her identity as a native and became a God-fearing woman. Despite issues with my mother, my dad continued to let us visit with her mom and stepdad, because he felt they were good people. They taught us things about native culture, spirituality, legends, and the people. My grandmother and I spent a lot of time together, so I was given an opportunity to learn Cherokee medicine. My grandma comes from a long line of medicine men and women, and is one herself. Now, so many years later at the ripe old age of 23, I am also one. So now that you have some insight, I'll continue. Now, this isn't a ghost story, but I do believe it qualifies as paranormal, as it is outside usual daily happenings. About 2 years ago, my father, brother, and I moved into a new home, a little more in the country than the previous homes had been. Something we all thoroughly enjoyed because we grew up immersed in nature and a love for the land. Shortly after moving there, about 3 months in, I decided it was time to expand my family by getting myself a puppy. This would be the first dog that would actually be in my care. I've always had a very strong connection to dogs as my guiding spirit is a wolf. I learned this after a vision quest many years ago, but that's a story for another time. After a while of searching, I came across a beautiful 5-month-old male German Shepherd Pit Bull mix. I went to meet him, and instantly fell in love. He was the greatest, very sweet, kind to the cats, and protective of me. He became my best friend, everything you could want in a dog. Now, anyone who has owned a puppy or young dog will know that potty training is a task. Even after being with us for 2 months, he was still waking me up every 2 to 4 hours to go outside. Hard on the circadian rhythm, but it had to be done. On this occasion, in particular, we got a late-night visitor that we weren't expecting. Like I said, my dog woke me up in the night. This time it was around 2:45 a.m., and I wasn't ready, but I dragged myself out of bed and clicked on the leash. Opening the back door greeted me with a cool breeze. I rolled my eyes and went out in the yard with my pooch. He did the usual dog thing, sniffed around and jumped in the freshly cut grass, completely forgetting what we'd come outside to do in the first place. I whistled at him, recaptured his attention, and he got back to business. As he squatted, I turned my head to the sky, offering him some privacy. The moon was exceptionally large that night, almost full but not quite. During this observation, I began to realize there was no typical nighttime noises around me. As if it wasn't unusual enough, I had a shiver go down my spine and my arm hair began to stand on end. That's when I heard my dog let out a low growl as he pinned himself against my leg. When I looked down at him, his tail was tucked and his heckles were raised. When I tried to move, he pressed himself against me more. Another shiver came over me, and now I took the opportunity to follow where his eyes were looking. When I did, I was looking at what appeared to be a coyote. Not totally uncommon in the area. We'd heard them on many nights living here. But this was different. It looked different and felt different. The most frightening thing, however, was that it was looking right back at me. I didn't move, didn't take my eyes off of it, and that's how I was able to see its features so clearly in the moonlight. Its fur looked thin, even bald in some spots. Its eyes were more yellow, not reflective yellow like you'd see on a dog in the dark, but yellow like the sun. Very powerful and almost blinding. Then, looking more closely, I noticed its back legs were longer than a normal coyote. Longer than any canine creature should be, actually. Starting at the hips and going down, they seemed to look almost bipedal in design. That's when it dawned on me just what I was seeing. I picked up my 60-pound dog, never taking my eyes off the creature. As I did, I said a Cherokee prayer in my head that I'd learned from my grandma. As if it was physically upset, it backed up slightly, and then I heard a voice that perfectly mimicked my grandma's say, "Why would you do that, Mickers?" No one aside from my grandparents ever called me that. It was their special name for me. With that, I darted for the door, dog still in my arms, entered, put him down, and locked it behind me. The noise must have woken my brother because he came to the kitchen all bothered. He asked me what was going on and why the dog was all riled up. I held my finger to my mouth and shut off the light. We then made our way into the living room and shut that light off as well. And like something out of a horror movie, the outline of a tall humanoid thing shone through the stained glass of the small window on the door, thanks to the bright moonlight. We both froze, and he made a grab for the knob when it started to turn, capturing it just in time to lock it. That's when it spoke to him, but this time in my grandpa's voice. "Bubba, why don't you let Grandpa in?" They live on a reservation in Cherokee, North Carolina. His face turned ghost white and he turned to me. That's when I mouthed the word and he paled even more. They began to tap on the glass and we both went into my room and ignored the knocking. The next night, around the same time, the tapping grew louder. We sat in the living room, praying to Yunalan Hui, the Cherokee sun goddess, also called the Great Spirit, that it would go away. The tapping turned into knocks, which turned into pounding the more we prayed. This must have woken my father, because he came downstairs in a huff. We told him about the night prior during the day, but he didn't believe us, and thought it was just one of my brother's friends being an asshole. So when he saw the silhouette in the window, he grew more angry and made a beeline for the door. We yelled at him not to open it, but he did. However, instead of harming him, it seemed to be afraid, because it got down on 4 legs again and disappeared down the road. My dad's face paled as he stumbled back a few steps, He locks the door behind him, and we all went to bed. The next day, we talked about the situation. I explained to him the natives call this creature a Skinwalker. They aren't very common in Cherokee legend, they're more of a Western native legend, but my grandparents still taught us about them. Dad, being a skeptic, just sums it up to a weird thing he couldn't explain. Later that day, I went to our local craft store and bought juniper ash, as my grandmother instructed, and sprinkled it around our house. It never returned, but my dog was never the same after that night. It's as though the entire experience changed him. He went from a loving animal to mean and unpredictable. He started lashing out at anyone who wasn't female. We tried correcting it over the course of a year and a half, but nothing helped. He finally harmed my brother, causing him to bleed, and I was forced to find him a new home. Luckily, he's with a couple who are both female and seems much happier, but even to this day, I guarantee he won't go out at night. I didn't mention the name of the creature very many times because it's considered a bad omen in native culture to give these things energy. If anyone is nervous after reading this, please feel free to message me, and I will happily walk you through a prayer and ritual taught to me by my grandmother. I hope you enjoyed this, and pleasant dreams. So last night, I awoke at around 3 a.m. after going to bed at 12. I went to get some water and sat back down on my bed, staring out my window. I live in a heavily wooded area in New York, so not the city, so hopefully that helps set the scene a little. So I was looking out my window, and there are many trees visible outside my window. As my house is on a cliffside, I'm kind of at the middle of a 30-foot tall tree section. The window I was looking out overlooked the cliff, and the trees are right in front of me. The moon illuminated something on one of the trees. It was a humanoid-like figure, and its features were barely visible through the darkness. I looked at it in fear, as it was about 7 feet tall, but appeared to be crouched down on a sturdy branch. After about 10 seconds, it turned its head and looked at me. Its eyes were red, and it stared at me for another 10 seconds, and then looked like it fell off the branch. I rushed to the window to see what had happened to the thing, but it took off into the bushes and greenery of the forest floor. It moved fast. I saw the bushes moving as it got further away in the moonlight. I'd like to know if anyone knows what this creature was. I believe in the paranormal, but I haven't yet had an encounter with anything besides this. I did some shallow research, and I believe what I saw was possibly a Wendigo. Although, I'm still not sure at all. If you think you know anything, please reach out to me. This isn't the first paranormal encounter I've had, but it is only the second time someone was with me when something strange and inexplicable happened. We moved into the new house we're currently living in October of last year. I should mention, the house we came from also had its share of really creepy happenings, and there is one event that I feel is connected to what happened in the new house. I was home alone with my dog, reading on my bed. My parents at the time were remodeling their bathroom and had met with the man who would be doing the job at the home improvement store down the block to look at tiles. Now, this whole encounter is quick and over in a matter of seconds if I'm going to be honest with you. But even now, years later, I struggle to get it out with shaky hands on my keyboard. Before I get on with it, I just want to say I was in near silence, meaning no music was playing, no TV, my laptop was off and charging, I was not on my phone, no headphones in. Basically, I wasn't doing anything that would cause noise. And seeing as I was home alone, the only source of human voice would have been me. The only sound that could be heard was the sound of the air conditioner. So I was on my bed reading, my dog was downstairs presumably napping since he was like 12 years old at the time. He's still kicking, he's 17, and has a heart condition that causes him to get tired easily. All of a sudden, I hear my mom's voice greeting the dog like she always does when she comes home. And I mean exactly the way that she does. switching between English and Spanish, the same tone, everything. I stood up and stretched, but realized I hadn't heard the door open. So I approached the stairs and very confusedly called out to my mom. Mom? Silence. And then, my dog starts screaming. I mean screaming, as if he was being tortured, crying and whining, and I start calling out to him, scared out of my mind. I took the first step of the stairs down and immediately froze. Something felt so very wrong. I was flushed with this fear. I knew without a doubt that whatever greeted my dog was not my mom. Whatever it was, it literally froze me with fear. My dog came running up, zoomed right past me and into my room, headed into my bathroom, and then hid behind the toilet. Mind you, through tears and shaky hands, I did call my mom. I practically blew up her phone, but all I got was voicemail. That was the first time something like that had happened to me, and I knew I couldn't just explain it off and shelve it in the back of my mind. Later, when my mom got home, I told both my parents what happened. They brushed it off and thought I was just imagining things. The second time is actually what I'm writing this post on. It happened in November of last year, but in between moving and settling in, finding a new job, my grandmother's declining health, and how scared my mom was, now has been the only time I've gotten to keep calm and tell the story of my second encounter, with what I now refer to as the Mimic. This new house we moved to was built literally a month before we moved in. The neighborhood is still under construction. My mom and I were sitting in the family room giving each other pedicures. My stepdad had gone out with my grandfather to run some errands. We were watching something on Netflix when we both heard my stepdad come in through the front door. My mom called out to him, "Blank, are you okay?" To which we both heard him respond, "Yeah, honey, I'm good." We heard him open the garage door and go in. Obviously, we thought nothing of it. 20 minutes pass, and we both nearly jump out of our skins when my grandfather opens the backyard door in the family room, peeks his head in, and asks us to open the garage when we had the chance so they could unload the groceries. My mom and I looked at each other, again, confused as it seemed to be an ongoing theme, and she tells him, "Isn't it open? He just came in." We both look at each other, and she starts calling out to him, but my grandfather cuts her off and tells her that's impossible because my stepdad was out back. We go out looking, and they're getting out of his car. To not confuse anyone, we have a huge, and I mean huge, backyard, and my parents are in the midst of fixing up the backyard of this new house, so my grandfather had gone with him to the home improvement store to pick up some supplies and cement blocks to stand the barbecue on. That's why they had brought the car to the back. Was my stepdad. I look at my mom to see that she has the same petrified look on her face. My stepdad is still getting out of the car, not looking at us, and goes, "Sorry guys, I left the house key by accident. Can you open the garage door so we can unload the groceries?" Second fridge is in the garage, 6 people in one home. My mom takes off inside with me trailing behind her, and lo and behold, the lock on the front door was still on, and the garage door was still locked as well. I can't even explain how terrifying that was for my mom and I. We don't speak of it. That day my parents fought for hours, my mom thinking it was my stepdad playing some kind of prank on her, but that clearly was not the case. Later that night, when my mom was alone, I approached her and asked what she thought about what happened. My mom looked at me very sharply, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "Don't ever talk about this again. Don't." I didn't think to connect the two experiences till now. Since then, I have not encountered the Mimic. Quick note before I begin. I'm 100% Asian, so please forgive my English. So a 16-year-old female friend of mine passed away last week, Wednesday, due to some kind of medicinal error. I had a huge crush on her and was planning to confess and ask her out, but I never got the chance. On Wednesday, she was taken to the ICU because her condition was worsening, and at 8 p.m., she passed away. I didn't know about it until the next day when my friend told me at school. I was so devastated. I cried for God knows how long. Her funeral and cremation was to be on Friday, and all of my friends and I decided to go. On the day of the funeral, we all gathered at our classrooms to go there together. She also has a scent that I could easily recognize. Not creepy at all, right guys? And I get that scent in the classroom before we left. I thought I was imagining things and I ignored it. At the funeral, we said goodbyes to her, gave her flowers and letters, and all those things you do at a funeral, including crying. I told her I love her, and that I will miss her, and left a bouquet of red roses on her chest. Although I said my goodbyes, I didn't want to let her go yet. When I got back home, I took a shower and I tried to relax, but I could only think about her and things I didn't say, and I would start crying. Therefore, I thought I would take my mind off it by playing some video games. So I started playing FIFA 19 on my PS4, and it was going well. However, at around 8 p.m., my cat was rummaging around upstairs, so I went to bring her down. After I successfully driven my cat away, I started making my way back downstairs. But as I got halfway down the stairs, I heard my deceased friend yelling, "Hey, Red!" As I still wanted to see her and talk to her, I quickly went around the house looking for where the voice came from. When I went outside, I could hear the neighbors' kids playing loudly, but the voice I heard was quite different from theirs. My cats were staring at the garage, but I couldn't see anything. I gave up and thought to myself, maybe I'm hallucinating, and I went back to playing FIFA. 30 minutes later, I heard another "hey" right beside me. I looked around and I saw nothing. I then started crying again as I told myself that I would never see her again. Fast forward to this week, Monday, my friends and I gathered again to just chill. I then brought up what happened on Friday. Turns out my friends also had something to share. My mate said he heard knocks on his window, but was too afraid to open them. My other friend said that some kind of motor or something made sounds while she and her mother were talking about the friend who had died. As soon as we finished our story, I caught the scent of her again. I searched for her, yet nothing. On Tuesday, we did some kind of sermon or ritual that would release her spirit. In the middle of it, I got one last scent of her, as if she was sitting right beside me. After that, it was gone. I no longer get those scents or any visits all to this day. So yeah, that's my story of how I got visited by my crush. I'm sorry if this was too long, I just had so much to say. Thank you guys for reading this far, and if you have any explanation about those hays or questions, feel free to comment. Thank you again. So my friends, I hope that you enjoyed this collection of 5 terrifying true encounters with the unknown. All of these stories are really just ones that kind of fit in with each other to the extent that they are encounters with the unknown. Skinwalker, Wendigo, potential satanic cult, a mimic, and then a spirit of a recently deceased friend. I think they all qualify. So friends, if you enjoyed that video, please do hit that thumbs up button, and if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. That is always appreciated. My channel's hit a little bit of a growth spurt recently, and I could not be more proud of that, trust me. Also, if you're really feeling bold, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of my video, the channel, how you're doing, literally just anything, to be honest with you. Down in the description, you'll find links to all these stories, a Linktree link, which has all of my social media connections on it, as well as a link for a page where you can submit a story to me if you have one you would like to share. Please take advantage of it. All of that said, my lovely listeners, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope you're doing well out there. Keep your head up, and just know that no matter what darkness you run into today, the sun will rise again. If you stick through it, if you get through the day, no matter how hard it is, and no matter what's clouding your mind, tomorrow, it'll be something totally new. Not the situation will be something totally new. Tomorrow will be a totally new day. And from there, you can learn to grow, you can learn to move forward, and just be you. But be a better you. That's the whole thing. So, again, I'll see you on the next video, but until then, friends, sleep well.